drive them back, like just constantly create that echo chamber where we are saying, where's the empathy in that? Have you put yourself in these people's shoes? So that we can allow them to keep their eyes on the stars, but their feet on the ground, because that's a very easy age for them to just, be steeped in a reality that is very far from what's happening on the ground. And I think that's why you're seeing more practical ventures coming from people who are a little bit older. Also recentering them on the idea of incremental progress. Knowing that you want to be an entrepreneur, don't be so taken up by this VC model, and that's a big problem, because that's becoming such a big thing. Like all the young people, they want to hang around these innovation hubs, and they feel like they're in Silicon Valley, whilst they're not. We're here in Kenya, and yes, you might have Kenya Innovation Week, but generally we must recenter them in the reality, which is why I would like to, at this point, actually make a big shout out to M-Pesa Foundation Academy. I found your students to be very grounded. I found them to be very easy to guide. They took very easily to guidance. And I think that's also a very important thing. And then very quickly, 3 other things that we can do is to teach our students, especially in the legacy universities, rapid prototyping skills. Because it's very easy to come up with an idea until you have to prototype it. And that's the thing I saw even at the hackathon, that of the 7 teams, no single M-Pesa Foundation Academy team came up with an idea for which they didn't have a prototype. Whereas our university students, all 21 of them, some of them, if they could, wanted to get away with just giving us a brilliant, shiny idea for which their mentors had to sort of push them into a corner and say, where is the prototype? And then they went into that. So that is showing us that there is a gap in the higher education space on the ability for our students to do prototyping. So it might require for us to actually invest in maker spaces at the universities. Forget about, yes, we are doing the innovation hubs, and that's great, but we need basic maker spaces where we have small, all sorts of tiny gadgets, I don't know what you call it. Our science person here will tell us. I'm a lawyer. A good lawyer doesn't have to know the law. They need to know where to find it. I found this guy. He'll tell you what to put in your maker spaces. Helping our students get rapid prototyping skills, I think, is very, very important. And then the other thing is that design thinking thrives a lot on iteration and collaboration. So also getting our university students into spaces where we are connecting them with mentors, which is something that he spoke about earlier, so that they can iterate their ideas very, very quickly. Again, a thing that I found with the M-Pesa Academy students. Day 2 of the hackathon now, I came in mostly on day 2, and I hadn't been there on day 1. And there's a team that I came and found and almost tore them down to, having to almost start again. And one of the interesting things I found is that they were very comfortable with iteration. They were like, okay, we hadn't thought about that. Can you show us how else we can think about this? And that team ended up winning. So creating that iterative mindset where people do not feel like if you are inviting them to reconsider their idea, that it is not an attack on them, it's not an affront, to their capability. And then the other things that I think we can do, which are, really just sort of practical things, is to co-design programs with industry stakeholders, so that we have just enough of the balance of of the knowledge aspects and the research, but with the practical needs of what's happening in the industry and where the industry is. And then, of course, the other things are obvious things which have been spoken about here again and again, which is focusing on skills rather than theory. And if there's one valuable thing that we should go away with, it is on Mr. Githi's LinkedIn profile, facilitating learners to become. I think that's going to be a big, big thing for universities moving forward.
All right, I think we have a very key word for this summit, facilitating learners to become. I think, Steve, there you gave us something on the breaks. But before we just conclude, because we're running out of time, allow me to take one question from the audience, and then we can get the wrapping remarks from the team. So any question, any burning question? I think we have a question here.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Philip Nyawere. I was just thinking, I'm coming from Kabarak University. I was just thinking, is there Thank you. I was just thinking, is the CBC education system design thinking oriented? And if not, as educators, what could we do so that the CBC does not escape us? Because if it escapes us, then we have to wait for maybe another education system that will be able to incorporate this. Thank you.
All right, who wants to take that? Is CBC design thinking oriented? So we can take this very shortly, and then right after that, we can do, you can give us your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Philip Nyawere from Kabarak. I've been there severally. Think you're doing amazing things. And also to the rest of the universities, I think we are also on a path, on the right path, and keen to see how we can collaborate. I think I'm not an expert in education, neither in academia. However, allow me to give a view to the same. And if there's any expert within the crowd as well, please feel free to also chip in. I think I'll do it from two perspectives. As a customer of CBC, where I have my children and the country, notwithstanding the contents of the curriculum, because the change management, parents would be called to school, they'd be explained what is going on and what is happening. And one key takeaway from there is that a lot of emphasis is on the practical elements, that is the doing. And I have a friend, colleague of mine, who's working on an experiential CBC center, complete with AI tools and the rest. So when I look at how CBC is crafted and why I'm responding to this as a design thinking practitioner, I do see a lot of good elements. A lot still needs to be done in terms of change management. How do we receive products of CBC into university? Because it's a different way of doing things. And perhaps part of this Gen Z is coming from CBC, because some of the teenagers and young adults are actually recent products from CBC. And when you think about it, I think there's a lot of promise, but needs to be executed well. Still a lot of missing parts. Now, experience with M-Pesa Academy, and perhaps also based on observation as they were doing the design thinking hackathon, is that their motto is thinkers, doers, and leaders. So that's where the design thinking comes, then design doing, what I've actually proposed. But I know for M-Pesa, when they brought in the international curriculum, they also had to do a bit of change management. And some of us were called in to help to see, because within the international curriculum, for those of us who have relations there, they actually have a design thinking course, the international curriculum, that is specific and, teaches a lot of what we are discussing here. And this is imparted to kids when they're in their, the lower levels of learning. And the key discussion was, how do you also infuse elements of design thinking in CBC? I know that was about 3-4 years back. And part of it was doing, learning by doing. So that was a key component. And also to see, in terms of your term assignments, how do you actually employ design thinking? And I remember we had a showcase where we had tents, and we had actually children in the lower primary pitching to us like they're pitching to a startup investor. So from that perspective, there's opportunity, and I could see what we are trying to do at M-Pesa Foundation Academy, and I know the leadership is here, they can speak more into it. And when I look across the country, I do see potential. However, we all have to collaborate to actually make it work. I like the practical elements, whereby as parents, you have to spend the night doing homework for the kids. But it's good, with the kids, at times 4. But it's very good because when I look at the entrepreneurship class where they make things and they have to sell, they're selling something for, less than the price it costs to manufacture it. And you as the parent, you're like, I spent 500 shillings and you're selling it at 100 shillings. So I think those elements are very good. There's still a long way to go. And I believe if we take a critical look and handle the change management properly, curriculum that works for us. But again, away from CBC and 844 and the rest, is to take a step back. And I know also in universities we are grappling with this. I think for me, besides all these discussions, is to say, what really works for Africa? What works for Kenya? Can we define it? I think that's the critical thing to do, in terms of critical thinking, to go back and say, what are we seeding, for our country, our continent, in the next 100 years? When the population will be said to be, each country will be talking of hundreds of millions. What societies are we creating? And then we just work backwards and say what needs to be done. If it's curriculum, I was recently in a conference where we are talking about underrepresented languages. And for those in the AI space, it means, our culture is not represented within the AI models. When you go to a local, an open repository and pick a model, guess which programming language was used to write it? Which language annotations were used to train that model? And from such fundamental things to even say, we need to start building our own foundational models. We need to do tech that works for us. When you talk about AI, we think about massive servers in the cloud. But when I think about Africa and Kenya, it's about Mama Mboga, it's about local edge solutions. So also to reframe even how we do our policies, whether it's in universities or government, and have something that really works for Kenya and Africa. We have what we have in terms of the current curriculum, but what we can control is what happens going forward. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm going to give each of our panelists 30 seconds each. I know we're running out of time. It's almost lunchtime and we still do have another segment. To give us your key takeaways or your closing remarks. If you could just tell us from this, what would you want us to leave this room with?
All right, I think for me would be a challenge really to universities to employ design thinking for themselves, top to bottom. And I think it might need a mindset shift, but maybe that's something that we need to start thinking about. But I think, as I said, there's huge, huge potential for universities to be leading when it comes to the area of innovation and to be actually giving the innovations to solve real problems that industry and corporates can take up. And everybody can make money. Sometimes we think about making money as a bad thing. It isn't a bad thing. It is a very good thing. So you can commercialize your innovations if you use design thinking methodology, and also maybe don't overthink. I think academia, because you're thinkers by nature, you overthink. Go quickly to market, test, come back, change, and push your innovation out. And all the very best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mine is in 2 words: design, doing. Let's just practice, 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 and collaborate well at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, engineer.
I think to say that there is a fear sometimes that design thinking will replace the space of the university. And I think nothing is going to change academic rigor. If, for example, you wanted a tailor to be more creative with their designs, they have to know the stitches, they have to know the patterns, they've got to know that. So academic rigor is something that will need to happen. And I think in the wave of emotion of all of this innovative thinking, we shouldn't be taken away from that. I think what we need to be doing is to, far more than any other time in history, insist on academic rigor. And then also in a world where information is being democratized and perhaps we are going to find ourselves in bigger echo chambers than we've ever seen before. Because, young people now have a lot more access to information, but strangely, they are a lot narrower minded because they find themselves in these echo chambers where they are hearing the same thing. And so some of the things that we need to be thinking about, even as we encourage purely relying on online sources, which sometimes can skew you and just lock you into one echo chamber. I think that's going to be very, very critical for us to hold our space, but hold it within a context that is changing, especially in light of all the developments with how information has been democratized.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the panelists. I think as some of the things that I've learned and listened, and key takeaways, I think, from one of the sessions on experimenting is that, remember, startups are about testing hypotheses. I think Yvonne mentioned about experimenting as well as Andrew. It's about testing a hypothesis. Somebody mentioned about accidental innovation. So when it does happen, be ready to deal with it. Elaine mentioned, and for those of you, I don't know how many people are running innovation hubs or programs within innovations, programs for innovations within university. Anyone? Anyone with maker spaces, innovation hubs? I know Kabaraka has one. Anyone? All right. So it's a challenge that as you're thinking through the curriculums and the projects, maker spaces are key, as has been mentioned. I heard on experimental CBC center. I've never heard of that. That's a very interesting one. So maybe something to look at, but probably continuous redesigning of the CBC as it seems. I like the M-Pesa motto on thinkers, doers, and leaders. So I think you guys are already doing a good job in shaping that. And among amazing things, so we are is design doing. From this point, we are learning on future to be, and from you, keyword. Commercialize. I mean, coming from a marketing expert, yeah? Make money out of it. Make money. It's all about at the end of the day, all right? So thank you to the panelists for the engaging discussions. It was quite enlightening. And also to the audience for for listening. Apologies, we didn't have time for much more conversations. But we want to continue remember the discussion is to reimagine how our universities and institutions at large are thinking through design thinking. So when you go back, look at the kind of programs you have, look at the kind of spaces that you have or you're creating. Sometimes you don't have to go over and spend more money, but how can you do differently? Think about adaptability, think about collaboration, and then think about becoming and doing. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the summit. as well as the rest of the Kenya Innovation Week program. So I think I can call my panelists for a photo shoot here, for a photo, and then we proceed with the rest of it. I think the DVCs, if you're around, you can also join in this. And our program MC.
I'm acutely aware that I'm standing between you and lunch. So I won't spend too much time. But I think I want to bracket this session by bringing in a little bit of philosophy. Epictetus, one of my favorite Stoic philosophers. Epictetus was a slave, by the way. Epictetus, born 2,000 years ago in a wealthy household. And Epictetus said this, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. And I think for me, that quote from this ancient Stoic philosopher underscores the importance of listening, which is a foundational aspect of empathy. It encourages us to focus on understanding others before taking actions. And one of the things that has been a running theme here is don't design things before talking to the people you're designing things for. And perfectly in alignment with what my colleague Inos will talk about in terms of the goals of empathy mapping in design thinking. I'm a Pan-Africanist, and therefore I cannot give you an ancient Greek philosopher without coming home. And this next one is something you're familiar with, I'm sure, and if you're not familiar with, shame on you. And this is the Ubuntu philosophy. Ubuntu, Gumtu, Ngambanye, Abantu. I am because we are. And I love this because it emphasizes that our humanity is bound to the humanity of others. So perfectly aligning with the essence of empathy and the goal of understanding our stakeholders' needs, a central tenet of design thinking. And finally, there's an Akan, and old people who are in present-day Ghana and parts of Ivory Coast. And the Akan talk about wisdom being like a baobab tree. No one individual can embrace it. And to my mind, this proverb encourages the collective nature of knowledge and insight, reminding us that understanding others requires collaboration and shared perspectives. And I think it aligns beautifully with the principles of design thinking, where empathy, teamwork are central to innovation. And that's the focus of our next session. We'll be looking at the notion of empathy. And as you have heard from the very beginning, empathy is the foundation of design thinking because it shifts our approach from solving problems based on assumptions to solving them based on genuine insight in the lived-in experience of others. it requires to step into the shoes of our stakeholders, whether those are students, faculty, or staff members, and viewing the challenges through the eyes and understanding of their aspirations, frustrations, and their needs. And crucially, this is a human-centered perspective that should not only improve the relevance of any solution that comes from design thinking, but also fosters trust, collaboration amongst all involved. And that's what this next session is going to do. It's going to give you a hands-on opportunity to apply empathy mapping in small groups, focusing on key stakeholders within the university setting. And by engaging in the exercise, what I hope you happen is you'll not only learn the mechanics of empathy mapping, but experience its power, spark new ideas, and uncover hidden opportunities. And I think for me, if you walk away with anything important today, walk away with the practical insights into how empathy can enhance leadership effectiveness and drive innovation. And for that, I'm going to invite my friend Enos. Enos is currently the country director of UK Kenya Tech Hub that supports tech entrepreneurs in Kenya through ecosystem building, enabling access to finance, markets, and talents, and facilitating linkages between Kenya and UK. All I want to tell you about Enos is that he's passionate about startups and innovation and how those can be harnessed to solve local and global challenges, creating long-term impact. He's a man of many hats, and he's previously consulted for the World Bank Group, Kenya Climate Innovation Center, Nairobi Innovation Week. The list is too long, and I know you're hungry, so I will hand over to Enos to start us off on the next exercise. A big round of applause for Enos.
Good afternoon, everybody. You've been seated for a long time. I would want to stand. Just stand. Because I know I'm standing between you and lunch, and it's not funny. Okay? It's really not funny. Try and stretch a bit. Say hi to your neighbor. Tell your neighbor, are you excited? Are you excited for the next session? All right. So quickly, we can have our seats. And I'll request the media team to just put on screen something, but quickly, I just want to give very quick context. And I'll after that, I will actually allow my co-facilitators to quickly introduce themselves. Then we now move to the activity. Now, we've been talking about design thinking, we've been talking about startups, we've been talking about a number of things about innovation and all that. And I always say two things. If you're in the room and you're confusing between an SME and startup, then it's really important you get the difference, because this is an investment that goes through what we call innovation-driven enterprise, that it takes time to actually get the product to the market. So what we are going to tackle is this, the design thinking, which basically is going to give you a prototype, okay? But I know we've talked about user and customer, and again, that's another conversation that comes out quite frequently. Are they the same? Sometimes they could be the same person. Sometimes they could be different. We've talked about students, and we've also talked about parents. So you'll find that who are you designing for is a very big question. But ultimately, when you have designed, the other question you need to ask yourself, who are you selling it to? Okay? So you're selling it to the parent, but you're designing it for the child. So how does that play? And then, of course, this is how now you take it to commercialization. So I won't talk about these other two, but this is just the context of the beginning, from the beginning. So quickly, I'll allow my other co-facilitator to introduce themselves. We have Njeri again. So Njeri has spoken in the panel, but I'll just say one word about the exercise.
Okay, so yes, Yvonne Jerry again. One of my favorite things to do is lead ideation sessions and anything based on design thinking. So I'm going to be very happy for the next few minutes. What we're going to do, and Enos will guide us, is just like give you a snippet of the process. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do everything today, but just to give you a taste. And hopefully, you will be able to carry it back into your institutions and into your daily work. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. We have Andrew again.
Good afternoon. A pleasure. So Andrew is my name. Specifically, I'm in charge of innovation, tech R&D at Safaricom, and I'm happy now we are doing design doing. Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Dr. Lamek.
So, good afternoon once again. My name is Dr. Lamek Rono from Rongo University. I'm here to stand by Moses and make sure that we actualize design thinking from higher education perspective. I'm the Dean, School of Information, Communication and Media Studies of Rongo University.
Thank you so much. So they'll be moving around the tables. I don't want to make this very complicated. I will just try and check in the room, who do we have in the room? And that can guide us very well. So do we have students in the room? Students? Okay, so that, all right. Do we have staff, university staff member, either faculty? Do we have faculty for universities? I just want to get the feel of who are the majority. So we have most are faculty. What are the rest? I'm just trying to. Corporate, others, corporates. Okay, so we have quite a number of corporates. So we tend to have majority of what we have in the room are actually faculty members. And I think we need to find problems that surround this group of the majority. And I would want just to specifically pick on the faculty members, the challenges or the problems. So having said that, I'll quickly remind us of two things, even as we start this exercise. There's this saying that Steve Jobs never used to ask customers what they want. And also, I think it's been echoed by a famous guy. He was trying to follow what Henry Ford did. How many of you know Henry Ford? What is he known for? Cars. What did he do for cars? He must produce the assembly line. So he said, if he had asked customers what a faster horse. All right? So by them saying a faster horse, and this is basically what we are saying is that, what are they pointing at? The solution. A faster horse is the solution. But I don't want you to look at the noun. So what is the noun here? The horse. Because you are the innovator, you are the originator of a solution. And so you don't want to be given a suggestion from a customer who has a traditional way of doing things. You get? Because he will give you the traditional way of doing things. What you need to find out is the word faster. What do we call faster in English? An adjective. So I want you to write down two things, the verb and the word. The verb and the adjective. So those are two things that we are going to really interrogate and write. Okay? I'll repeat. In our conversation, we are going to unpack the verb and not the noun. The noun is a suggested solution. So if you are operating, because the customers, or rather the users, there's a way they have been doing things, okay? And they are limited with that level of understanding. They'll only give you examples from their experience. So if, in fact, they've been riding horses, they'll tell you a horse. But you're not looking for a horse, you're looking for a car. But what you're picking is something that can move faster. It could be a car, it could be a motorbike, it could be all those things. So please just take note of that. So the next thing, I've just picked on what we call as is scenario. Okay? So for Henry Ford, his example was giving the scenario of the user at that time. What was the scenario? The horse. Okay? So in our engagement, what I want us to do is to highlight their scenario. Okay? So for the staff, the university staff member, what is their scenario? Okay? As is. They have quite a number of challenges. Okay? But they are trying to solve that challenge the same way a horse was trying to solve the transportation problem. So what we'll do, we'll use a framework of thinking, of design thinking, called as-is scenario to empathize. So I will kindly just put that up, and then we can do this. We can start with the exercise. Now, I would want for the staff members to just stand up. The university, I want to distribute university, the university staff members or faculty, just stand. I want to redistribute you in all the tables. So it looks like you are the majority, so let me see how we're going to do this. So quickly, I'll ask you to do 1, 2, 3. No, actually 1, 2, because I want 2 of you, at least 2 of you in a table, in all the tables. So let me see the tables that are missing. There's a table missing here, so some of you can join here, just quickly. 2 of you. Because the rest of the team will actually be interacting with you and asking you questions. So make sure, let's do 3. So 3 here, 3 here. There you have how many? 2. 3 here. 2, 2. All right, some of you will have to be 2, but I think we are balanced okay. So just have your seat where you are, but the rest of the team members will now be interrogating you in terms of the challenges, okay? So we will do this, but I want in each table you recruit a leader, someone who will be leading the table in terms of doing all this. Drawing. Okay. Please, quickly. We don't have time. Yes. All right. So just put up the slide, the second one, for the empathy map, for the as-is scenario. So I hope we'll be able to see, not this one, the other one. Yeah. So scroll, sorry. I have, let me see. I don't know why it's not scrolling. Oh, okay. All right. So Yeah. So what I want us to do is, sorry, this is, yeah. I want you to draw this line in the main yellow chart, the main yellow, whatever, manila paper. Draw this. This is faces, doing, thinking, feeling. So draw the rows and label them that, okay? Draw the rows and label them that. Now, so remember, we have chosen our user is the university faculty member, okay? They do have, so just so that we get it clear, our user is the university faculty member. They have things they are supposed to do, okay? So, to map out the problem area, let them ask them the first question, which is, what goals are you supposed to achieve in the university? I know that's very broad. Let's say we can narrow it down and say they have a teaching role, okay? So there's actually the teaching process is what we want to unpack and see what are the challenges in delivering the teaching and all that. What are the problems around that? So problems are pegged on activities they are trying to do. So try and unpack the activities. Now, for the activities, use the post-it note. Just use the post-it note, write the activities that the faculty members are supposed to do in achieving their goals. What are those activities? And then we'll face them, we'll map them around there. So just write the activities on the post-it notes. You start with goals, and most of the goals are in terms of activities, okay? So just the same thing, goals and activities. What activities are they supposed to do? They're supposed to probably teach, and then, now you can discuss. Oh, so.
Put them here next to the.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. No, actually, as many as possible. As many as possible. Remember that the part for the doing is actually also addressing the activities. What are they doing? Okay? So what are faculty members doing? Okay? So there are a number of activities that you're doing. You're teaching, you even probably have, yes. You're learning also, you can say you're learning, you're coordinating. Okay.
Yes, and actually when you think about it, so is also to ask what is missing, and you can actually pen it down. That's
Yeah.
a very good problem
Yes,
statement.
yes.
What is missing in that whole?
Yes,
What do you
because
feel is missing?
yes.
Can we agree he handles this part of the room?
Oh, okay. So what I wanted you to do is just move around and just direct whatever.
Let me get this one started.
Oh, okay. Where is Lamek? Yes. So now that some of you have actually put down what they are doing, okay, what we want to understand, okay, is now the how, okay? Because as his scenario tries to interrogate the how as per now, to actually see the gaps, okay? Is it a painful process? Is it a slow process? So we are basically going to unpack the teaching, the how. So just look at the doing yes. So how have you been doing right now? And how do you feel, how do you think that process is? Are we getting? Yes, so you unpack on the sticky note, again, you can choose another color, but we just want to interrogate the how, okay? So I'll give an example of this table. They've said they do teaching, mentoring, publication, research grants, yes, marking papers. So question now, the big question becomes how? So, and feel free, you can interview them. Actually, this is an opportunity of interviewing them to actually find the how, okay? So how do you deliver those activities? And how do you feel about the how? What is your thinking about the how? And what are you feeling about the how? Okay? So the thinking about the how and the feeling around the how. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So feel free to interrogate them, what the how, and how they feel about the how, and what they think about the how. Now, I just want to add another swing to it. So, you ask them if the how is indeed leading to the goal that they need to achieve. Because they are assessed against a goal. What is that goal that we start? So the goal, like for instance, if it's teaching, the goal is to ask them how are they evaluated that they have actually achieved the teaching, okay? And is the process they're using currently to teach helping them to achieve that goal as quickly as possible? Or is it time consuming? Is it, like let's say for instance, if it's physically marking the papers, if it's you have to be in class and then you're coming from maybe one part of Nairobi, because there are activities that that accelerate or makes the teaching happen better, and what are those? So ideally the how is face to face. So for face-to-face, does it deliver better? And then if it's yes, yes, it's a tick. We don't need to actually, if it's working, we don't need to correct it. That's what I'm saying. If it's not working, then there has to be, it becomes a problem area that we basically need to find solution. All right? So. So the how, if you interrogate the how and you feel like the how is working, we don't need to correct because you don't need to think of a problem when there's no problem. What you need to think is where are gaps? Is it a slow process? Is it giving you the objective that you need to achieve? Let's say the outcome of all these things is that you have very good students coming out of it. But so far, you've not had any good students. Why the how is arguing for. So you basically highlight some of what you feel about the how in terms of delivery.
And then I can do a brief introduction of what it is.
It narrows down the objective that you want. As a faculty, I need to teach. And the way I'm evaluated in teaching is 1, 2, 3, but the outcomes are not coming. Why it's the how
we have
that
to
is the
start
problem.
thinking and
So what we are trying to do is to make sure that gaps around
when
the
we are
how
looking at
are
the future, we've got to be aware that we have to look at localizing, Africanizing the large language models, and tell you can use cloud
marketing by word of mouth.
Be aware
So that is
that it is skewed against us. So be critical when you're thinking
oh,
about that.
I see. I see. So they're doing marketing for what exactly? For the courses? Oh, I see.
Yes.
So question becomes, does that marketing lead to an outcome that is desired outcome? So what is the desired outcome? Is that student will come, more students will get enrolled. If it, yes, increased enrollment. So if it doesn't work, it means the how is you have to rethink. So, but I'm not saying it has to have gaps. It might be the perfect way of relaying that. So if it's a perfect way, it means that students are coming. Students are being enrolled. But if students are not being enrolled, then you say, actually, it's not making us achieve what we need, the desired outcome. Okay? So you need to understand, you need to unpack it further and say why. You get what I mean? So